Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to bring you one of our favorite series, and that is the If We're Being Honest series here at The Push. Today, we have a very special video, and a lot of times we don't ever seem to be at the right spot to be able to do videos together on these monumental video counts. But this particular video is the 400th video. We're both here, we're both ready. We have a little bit of a special presentation for you. But first and foremost, thank you everyone for helping to support us get to this 400th video. It's meant a lot to us, and we love doing it. We love putting out this content weekly, daily, sometimes, and just wanted to thank you from us over here at The Push with Nick and KP.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure
Uh,
to get some of our like passions out there, and obviously we're both putting in a lot of effort here, and we both absolutely love it. So the more the merrier. This is number 400, and if I'm being honest, we got a next addition to the series to go.
and very feels like we're scratching the surface. But for today's video, we have essentially we each have two ideas that we past TV specials or brands or events that WWE has put on that we miss. We remember fondly. We want them. We want WWE to bring them back. So we each have two ideas. We're going to go through those and kind of go back and forth on how we feel. How we would feel about WWE bringing those back. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing that I wish WWE would bring back is the mixed match challenge. This was a ton of fun. It was something new, something unique, and I feel like that's kind of the underlying theme probably for this, at least my ideas. This was something unique we hadn't seen. The dynamic between these teams was always fun. And in today's environment, you could do a mixed match challenge based on actual couples easily. It just kind of writes itself, and I'm not really sure why this isn't brought back. I don't know anyone who speak negatively of these. Obviously, I think the first one was probably better received than the second one. But in terms of just what they bring out and how much fun they can be, and in today's product that desperately needs something new and something refreshing, I think this is a perfect opportunity to bring that back. KP, what are your thoughts on the Mixed Match Challenge?
Yeah, you make a really good point there, just at the back end of that. I think at the moment the main roster position, especially within WWE, is quite here and there, quite hit and miss. And I think that a lot of people are sort of like at different places about their enjoyment levels of the product, generally speaking. So something like this, I mean, this had a lot of different sort of elements to it. You had your sort of mixed, mashed up teams put together, and sometimes made for quite comical pairings and partnerships. And I think we do see that over the couple of seasons, especially with R-Truth and Carmella. Especially, I think they were one of the most entertaining couples that we probably did see out of the course of the two seasons. Not only that, but obviously there are many that have been throughout the entire things. But I think also what can also work with this style thing is you don't have to keep it in its own little bubble. And I think with the way that they did the likes of R-Truth and Carmella, and I've also included, Braun Strowman and Alexa Bliss down here as well. I think these are probably the two teams that probably mainly just made more of an impact outside of the Mixed Match Challenge on the main roster product as well. And we saw the likes of R-Truth and Mella, being in the Royal Rumble, entering number 30. They were involved in their own separate storylines there, with all that kind of stuff. And then obviously Alexa Bliss and Braun Strowman, that leads to Alexa being in the Wyatt situation, which obviously you either like or you dislike. That's a very topical conversation, but there are things that you can take from this. It's not just mixing people together, put them in a team, have them have a little tournament thing, and then we just forget about it. Sometimes you can actually make something from these things if they work, and I think sometimes they did work, and they were quite entertaining in parts, and yeah, they just had a lot of different layers to it. So honestly, for a little bit of fun, we don't really get that a lot in the modern day product. Obviously, Dan has some bits here and there, but besides that, it's all relatively serious, and that's a good thing for a long time. But sometimes you do need a little bit of relief, and I think this provided that.
Yeah, and I feel like most of the teams on these, mixed match challenge tournaments, like you could come up with so many new teams and just ones that make sense. And like I said, just the couples themselves would fill this quite quickly. So that's my first idea. I just thought these were a ton of fun. Just honestly, it's something new and something different. Speaking of something new and something different, the next idea I have was very new and very different. They did two in as many years, and that first one honestly just is genuinely one of the highlights of my WWE, watch career. Like, it was such a special feeling watching that first Main Classic. And the second one was fun as well, but obviously you can only experience something once, for the first time once. So obviously the first one will always go down as a special moment. But just genuinely, these were such a cool. Granted, the roster at that time, like seeing all the people in that top middle photo. Truly crazy, but these Mayan Classics were such a good way to kind of get a closer eye on some of the talents here, and a lot of these talents obviously still around either the wrestling scene, or WWE specifically. So tons of talents here, and it was just such a cool format. I wish they would bring this back as well. I know it'd be harder because you don't have as much talent probably setting ready like you did. But I think a lot of these talents, if I remember correctly, they went out and got kind of for this, like a small contract. So I wouldn't be mad at that either. There's obviously plenty of women's wrestlers around the world who would probably jump at the opportunity to do so if they had it. But the two winners in Kyrie and Tony, just absolutely great talents. And unfortunately, neither of them with WWE now, which is upsetting. But clearly, both very talented and deserve to win those Mayan Classics. But KP, how would you feel if WWE brought back the Mayan Classic? And what were your kind of feelings and your thoughts on the initial first two tournaments?
Yeah, I like the Mae Young Classics. I thought they both did a pretty good job of sort of like showcasing, a brand new sort of wave of women's talents. Obviously, we've seen some come and go. We've seen some do a decent job, in and around WWE, in other companies across the world. Just I think generally speaking, it does sort of like highlight them, allows them to have a different another platform, and just showcase themselves in a way that maybe they wouldn't have possible at the time. But I think just generally with seeing so many different talents like in such a quick burst, such as this tournament. I mean, you got a load of names on there, that obviously we know from this, there, and the other reasons or whatever, and it can make stars of people. It can also just bring a lot of attention and eyes to them as well. I don't think there's anything really negative about this. It's just a showcase. It gets a lot of new talent together, and it allows them to sort of like have a moment where they can just sort of like bounce off of each other, and just allow them to uh just be a bit more known in the public eye. So I think really it's just a great thing all around. I don't see any issues with this personally. And if they did this in the modern day, yeah, okay, maybe it wouldn't be as easy to work out, but maybe there is a chance still. I'm not entirely certain how easy or difficult it is to sort of like work these things around, but um, I'm sure there'd be plenty of talent out there that could do something like this with, and that there are plenty of platforms and springboards they can use to go to different ventures afterwards. So yeah, I would love to have another version of this, another rendition. Only got two tournaments. I feel like that's a little bit of a disappointment almost, because these were a lot of fun to watch. And obviously, you do look at the likes of Kyrie and Tony, and they're absolutely classic. They are brilliant, both of them put together. So yeah, it obviously did them a decent job, and they went on to do some big things as well. So yeah, I think it's great. I would love to have another one.
So those are my two ideas, but yeah, and then just generally speaking, like both of those hold very special places in my heart. And WWE kind of career watch list. Like both of those are very special to me, and I don't see any reason why both of them can't be brought back. But KP, what are your two things that you think WWE should bring back to the current day product?
So having a think about this one, I think it was definitely something that you really have to sort of like put a lot of effort into, because there are so many things obviously they've tried and gone with over the years. Maybe have worked, maybe haven't worked. I think one of the things that did work though for me especially was 205 Live. I quite enjoyed this sort of like a show that you just had a large sort of showcase of the cruiserweight division. Obviously, you've included Enzo Amore up there. That's a specific sort of like image there that basically just dictates that this almost gave me sort of like NXT vibes, this kind of show, because there were a lot of experimentations with gimmicks, things like that, different characters, sort of like trying new things out. It did feel almost like a developmental for the cruiserweight division, if that makes sense. But obviously, people that have watched this before, they're probably very aware of the style that you do see each and every single week. Obviously, this is high paced matches, all over the place, very very fun to watch. Sort of like don't blink because you'll miss something action. And there are some incredible matches that took place throughout this the whole roster and brand. I think you got to look at the likes of like Mustafa Ali and Buddy Murphy, which I've included down below there. That was a really incredible no disqualifications matchup. Also, the likes of Mustafa Ali, Cedric Alexander, they had some really classic matches as well. That went over to the main roster. And then also with multi-man matches, you put 5, 6 cruiserweights in the contest, multi-man, it's going to be quite crazy to watch. It's going to be just be action absolutely everywhere. So yeah, I think there were a lot of really fun matches here. And who doesn't love a bit of cruiserweight action, right? Just getting some high flyers out there, absolutely going, balls to the wall, and just putting on a really fun and fast paced show. I think it works really well. But not only that, but this all sort of like stemmed from the Cruiserweight Classic, and very similarly to what you're talking about with the Mae Young Classic, a tournament, with lots of people involved from various different, backgrounds of experience levels in wrestling, maybe even, some veterans of the business, some newer guys coming up. And this one is actually quite slept on. There are some names in here that I had to go back and have a look just to remind myself who's actually involved in here. Obviously, you've got your 205 regulars that were in there as well, quite a lot of them as well. But you've also got names that maybe don't quite come to you as easily as they would. You've got the likes of Tajiri, who was in there, Zack Sabre Jr., Brian Kendrick, Kota Ibushi, Johnny Gargano, and Tommaso Ciampa. So there are some names in there that you look back on and you think, wow, that actually, that's a little bit surprising in parts. Not all of them, but, just a general sort of like example there. Like I'd forgotten that Tajiri was in this tournament. So it's just like you see things like that and you think, oh, wow, okay, well, I'm reminded that this actually was quite out there and a little bit different. So yeah, it's something that just provided a nice different injection of pace with weekly scheduling. So I liked it. And they did cross over to the main roster as well. And when they did that, Neville with the champion was terrific. I feel like I missed that I didn't put him on the slides here, but definitely want to give him a mention because his reign was absolutely brilliant. Like, he was fantastic, and we obviously spoken a lot about him in our recent NXT series that we're doing, that we're going to be uploading soon to the channel as well. So a lot of love for Neville right now for us. But yeah, Nick, when it comes to the 205 Live division and everything that sort of like comes along with that one, I think you are quite a fan of the cruiserweight divisions and stuff, Lucha Libre-esque style, obviously with your admiration for AAA of recent. Yeah, what are your general thoughts on the 205 Live brand?
Oh, funny you mentioned the Lucha Libres. I will bring that up actually because I have a great tie-in for that. But in terms of 205 Live cruiserweight divisions, obviously you will never hear any sort of negative reactions from me. I love the style that they bring in ring. I thought this was a great division and slash show, I guess. I will say I feel like once they moved the show out, of the main roster. I think that was kind of the ended up being the final demise of the show. I think people to have to then tune into a different show. I don't think that was really ever going to work. And I will say I feel like a lot of times the stories or lack thereof felt like they were kind of second thought. Whereas if we keep this title on the main roster and actively have those matches each week, week in, week out, I think that's much better served and helps kind of the general audience, casual audience, if you will, keep track of what's going on. I think the second they put that over to a different show, and then, even though you do have this picture up here, I think the second they put it on Enzo, we may agree, disagree here, but I feel like Enzo was kind of the final straw there too. Felt like what 205 was known for and the name that they had built for themselves from the in-ring standpoint, Enzo didn't quite match that bill. And so I think both of those things were kind of ended up being the final demise of the product. But I have absolutely no issues with them bringing this back. I thought this was a ton of fun. Obviously, like, how can you not like cruiserweight matches? They're just it's incredible what they're able to do. And with that, back to the Lucha Libre point, in AAA, you you have it like tailor made for you with all of the luchadors from AAA. You can so easily bring back this division, and if you bring that division, you don't necessarily have to bring back a show for it, but bring back that title, bring back just bring back the cruiserweight title, and you can casually just create a division here to the side. It writes itself, and obviously I love luchador wrestling. I love cruiserweights. It just makes itself. I love this idea, and I have a ton of fond memories from the show. Was just great. You know, it didn't, like I said, didn't have the best storyline sometimes, but sometimes it's just great just to go over here and watch the show. These two guys just doing incredible things. At 205 stipulation, I think might have been kind of loosely there for Buddy Murphy, especially. I don't think he quite, but regardless, the action and result was the same. These matches were always a ton of fun.
Yeah, they really were. And I know how much you obviously like the high flying action. So I think, we're sort of like singing off the same hymn sheet there. And something that we do also agree with, quite a lot is our sort of view on the women's division. And we obviously have watched them grow throughout the years. And I think something that definitely brought that, that sort of like way of them being perceived to life was Evolution, the very first women's, all women's PLE. And this one was, something that people wanted for quite some time. I think it was, questioned whether it would actually work or not. But putting it together on the card, was it the strongest of shows? Okay, you'd probably argue it probably wasn't. But I think it's more about the message and the importance of what this actually meant for the women's division. You got to a stage where, years and years prior to this one, women weren't exactly seen the same light as the men. And, obviously it was a big step to get to this particular point where they're sort of like valued and equaled, in-ring talents and stuff alongside the men's division. But when you get to this sort of stage here, you think, can they put on, a good enough show? And I think as part of this one, particularly here, the first ever women's evolution, we've seen them be, going through the years and like how they have sort of like grown throughout. But also, you've got the likes of Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. They put on a really tremendous match here. SmackDown Women's Championship. One of the hottest storylines in WWE at the time was Becky Lynch turning, from somebody who was like undervalued into the man. And she took that gimmick. She went to the main event of WrestleMania. And obviously, she never really slowed down from there on. She's been incredible since. Multiple world titles and just changing her career for the better. But it was one of the hottest characters in WWE at the time. And that sort of like shows that, the women can be sort of valued in the same sort of limelight as the men on certain stages if they've got the backing behind them. So I think, yeah, when you sort of look at it like this was such an important event because it shows that this is possible. It shows that these women are up in that sort of like stage of their careers where it's not only about men's wrestling, because that's what it used to be. That is how the reality was years and years ago. But also, you sort of like mentioned the Mae Young Classic. The first Evolution featured the second Mae Young Classic final in there, so that's obviously quite a cool thing to have over that we've crossed over already here. But not only that, but we don't see these Evolution PLEs that often. So in terms of like, would I like to bring this back? Okay, technically we're not bringing it back because it has come back since. But like making it a yearly thing, I think is completely fine, or maybe a bi-yearly thing at least as a minimum. Just a bit more regular is what I'm asking to try and do here, because I mean Evolution 2 2025, in my opinion, was the best PLE of that year. So, you bring out all the women, you put a lot of stock into their show, you bring in the NXT women as well to have a match, and it just really showcases what everybody can do when they're put together and they put on a solid show. The other shows throughout the year maybe underwhelming at times, but this one was solid from start to finish. And we even had a very great match as well, which is Bayley, Lyra Valkyria challenging for Becky Lynch's Women's Intercontinental Championship, which again shows the levels of the women's division's evolution over the years. Now they have mid card championships as well, like the men do. So yeah, it's something that I do really like, and I know you're a big fan of as well, Nick. Evolution is something that's very important. And what are your sort of like thoughts on it being a bit more of a regular thing?
Yeah, 100%. You won't get any flack from me on that idea. I kind of disappointed it took them as long. I think 7-ish years, I believe it was, for them to do it again. Like, there's no reason, considering the women's division that WWE has built, and obviously we've seen it, being fans of the product for long enough to see it kind of come into fruition, where we used to see them were, they were lucky to get a match on the show or a promo, and even sometimes stay in the current product, unfortunately. But we've seen that come to develop before our eyes and see them get their own PLE. It was just an incredible moment. I don't think the second one quite lived up to the moment that the first one created, but in terms of like how this all kind of built up, and this wasn't far after or long after the Mae Young Classic, so kind of tied in that way as well. Like this is building up that women's division. There's honestly no reason why they shouldn't have their own. Like, there's plenty of titles, there's plenty of talent. There's no reason why they shouldn't be an annual PLE. maybe it does lose a bit of its value or nostalgia factor or moment factor, if you will, by doing it every year. But again, like you perfectly said by you was, it's more so about the statement you're making, with the importance and highlighting how important the women are now in the wrestling product compared to what they used to be. Both of these PLEs I hold very fondly as well. So absolutely no issues with bringing these back. Just tons of moments. Honestly, between all four of these ideas, I think are great ideas to bring back. WWE, if you're watching this, definitely feel free to bring any of these back at any time. Yeah, these all four are great ideas. No need to my own horn, but your ideas were great as well, KP. I like the fact of bringing all these back, but again, well, we just wanted to bring back, and if we're being honest, for this 400th episode, again, thank you all for your continued support. We love doing this and really do enjoy just having the platform to talk about one of our favorite things, and that is WWE and wrestling in general. So if you like what we're putting out here, please let us know in the comments below. If you like this series, please do let us know. If you like anything else that we're putting out here or have any ideas for additional videos, please let us know as well. But until next time, this has been The Push, and this has been the latest episode of If We're Being Honest, episode 16, and we'll see you next time. Take care.